I've had a lot of practice, honestly, in living in my truth, because it's really interesting. I'm of a generation of, I was just talking about this with a client, a generation that came up with the whole children should be seen and not heard. You didn't have an opinion. You weren't allowed. And my mother was very strong. She was a wonderful mom, wonderful dad, but they were very strong, opinionated people. And it was very much like, we're the parent, you do as I say. And I think when you have that kind of an upbringing, you naturally just learn to just appease, go with the program, go with the flow, don't make waves. I was really into being a good girl, and all those things lend itself to you swallowing your truth, because the truth would then make people uncomfortable. So when I say I've had practice, both swallowing and learning how to spit it out, I mean it. I do.
Oh, that's so interesting because I'm older than you and I was taught to be children are to be seen and not heard. So how did you learn to start speaking your truth and to have a voice and to know what's really going on? And I think that's always so interesting because I like Google feelings chart still sometimes ago. We didn't talk about our feelings growing up. So I'll Google feelings chart and go, it's that one. Because sometimes I'm not really sure. My kids amaze me. I'm so impressed. They'll be like, this is overwhelming. Give me a minute, mom. I'll be like,
oh, they're so good about that. They're so good about on their mood meter. They're like, I'm feeling this today. I'm feeling that. I just don't feel like it. I'm like, oh, wow, that's amazing.
So impressed.
So I worked at Lululemon Athletica for a long time. Yep, I did. And I actually became a manager for them too. So they were the first ones that ever talked to me about goals. They were the first ones who ever talked to me about a stingy voice in your head, about not taking action, about not speaking your truth. And I was just like, what is this stuff? Like, I'd never heard about this stuff before. They sent me to development seminars for free. So I was really getting this massive dose. They had a whole library of development books that you had access to. So this was the first time that all these light bulbs start going off. And I start making connections and I start seeing, this is why you do what you do. Oh, this is why you get afraid of this. And this is why you pull back. And then you start observing yourself. And I think once you actually just have an inkling that something is off, and then you actually get the tools to start to sit outside of yourself a little bit, then it really gets interesting, right? Now you're observing how I behave in the presence of certain men who I see as authority figures. My voice gets higher. Okay, so I was like, oh, I'm noticing this. I start to panic. I don't breathe in certain situations. I would notice that if I'm in a confrontational thing, even though I'm a Scorpio, and by nature, supposedly, we love confrontation and conflict, that's not the case with me. I will be a justice fighter all the time, but when it comes to fighting for myself, I found that I was not as aggressive.
I'm like that too.
So at 40, I started noticing that I started giving a lot less of a shit about what people think. And I think we hear this a lot from women as they get older. You start to just not give a fuck anymore. And you're like, why do I care? Why was I covering my legs up for years, worried about varicose veins and cellulite? Because I really thought somebody cared. Like, why did I really rob myself of like years in the sun with my legs out? Because you start to just really see how ridiculous some of this is. So that was an opening, but then to do the work is something else. And that takes practice and patience and compassion. And there's been plenty of times when I've been disappointed in myself. I've been frustrated. I should have spoke up. I could have done this better. You just got to be easy with yourself, get up and try again.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. So here you are, you get exposed to self-help and personal development space and everything at Lululemon, where then what's your next exposure?
I was pole dancing. Okay. And I had discovered this pole dancing studio in LA. My trainer, I was an actor back then. So I was doing the whole, you have a trainer, you bartend at night, the thing. Yeah. And I went to this great class the other night. It was pole dancing. It was so fun. It's like this new thing that's happening now. So I was like, I like strip clubs. I'm a newlywed. This could be fun. So I go into this room. Fast forward to me falling in love with this. Fast forward to me becoming a teacher. Now, there was personal development happening in the studio, but I don't think we really realized the magnitude that it was happening, nor were we necessarily always equipped as instructors to deal with the emotional aspect of what was happening for these women. So that technically would be my first foray into coaching others, but I didn't realize that's what I was doing. So I recognized that this was impactful work to what I was already doing with women. And I wanted to do more of it. And I wanted to see more women really start, because my relationship to women changed when I started teaching the pole dancing. I really became Not that I wasn't a champion of women before, but I very much was of that mindset that I don't have a lot of female friends. It's difficult. They're jealous. It's tricky. It can get complicated. It's easier to have less female friends. It's ridiculous, but that's where my mind was. Starting to work with women in a studio that was predominantly women with all women students, I had no choice but to really face those sister wounds head on and recognize where they were coming from. So I really then became just huge champion of women, fell in love with us.
So how did you find out? So let's back up for just 1 second for anybody who's listening. So where did those come from? How did you discover that? Where your old ideas, or maybe they were limiting beliefs or whatever it was, of, oh, you can't trust women, or you weren't friends with women, or
that's friendship stuff. That's teenagers. That's your best friends betraying you. That's finding out that the girl you thought was your friend was actually talking about you behind your back, or trying to hit on your boyfriend. You're away at college. There were a number of instances where I felt like it never would occur to me to be different to my friends. In a sense, I think I grew up with this very much idea that I was very much like a fawn, and I was very gullible, it seemed. So in my mind, I didn't trust my intuition also early on, because it seemed that everybody I thought was for me always had an agenda, right? Or even my best friend and I, best friend meaning I met her when I was 10, like we're still friends now. She and I had a few falling outs because there were moments where I felt like, hey, you didn't stand up for me, or you didn't do this. So I think it just started to create this place of distrust. Can I really trust her? And it was like all these instances of me not understanding what the energy was, me not understanding how to be empathetic to what was happening, how to actually see myself in the center of it, how my own insecurities were playing into some of this. So really, it was just beginning relationships that didn't, I think, really paint a solid picture of what it could be to be amongst women that were actually grounded in who they were and comfortable and accepting of you and not intimidated by your energy. I learned to dim my light very early because of my interaction with women.
I can't imagine you with a dim light either.
I got called out by a teacher in acting class. Lauren called me out. I walked in one day and he calls me over. He said, come over here for a second. I want to talk to you. He said, I watch you walk in here every Wednesday for class. And every Wednesday you walk in, this bright light, crown is up, looking like a total star. And then the minute you cross the threshold, you go, oh, why are you doing that? He noted that. And he asked me, why do I do that? And I said to him, honestly, I do it to make other people comfortable. And what are you talking about? Why? And I said, because women don't like me sometimes if I'm just too confident, or I'm not unassuming enough. Like I've had that, or it draws too much attention from men unwantedly sometimes. So I just learned to just pull it in. And he's like, I really need you to never do that ever again. Like you have to stop. And it really became a theme for me battling that, to walk in with my crown up and my heart open and not see it as a need to, and even when women, to feel them start to pull back, instead of me pulling back, me reach out.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. I know exactly what you're talking about. Okay, so here you are in Cleveland.
Cleveland.
Yeah.
We had a little laugh about that before. How the hell you get from New York to LA to Cleveland? Yeah. I definitely thought, God, this is a very conservative city. It feels compared to LA. In my mind, I had the idea that I was going to do this, but it definitely took a long time because of fear that it was going to be rejected, fear that women were going to reject it, fear that it was going to be seen as too much for this area. They'll poo it, or they'll run me out of town, or anything like that. But I say that because my fear actually, I do believe, to be completely honest, did not allow enough breath into that part of the studio, the pole dancing part. And because of my fear, and for numerous reasons, there was some fear, but the main fear of it being rejected actually, I believe, did not give it the running start it needed in the beginning, because there was a lot of convincing I had to do back then. There were still women who were like, I want to talk about it with you, but I'm afraid. What is it that you do? Oh, a lot of teachers asking my son, so what does your mom do? She's a yoga teacher.
Yeah.
Sure. She's a Pilates instructor. I am all those things too. Yeah. But there was a lot of curiosity, but still so much fear to actually come through the door. And now they're like, I need this. I want this. Teach me how to roll my hips. Teach me how to touch my body. Teach me how to be in this. But it's all timing. So now is the time.
It's everything
Yeah.
is always timing, and all unfolds as it's supposed to.
We have the third eye right between our
Mhm.
eyebrows, but
Yeah.
then there's also the notion that the sacral energy holds a
Mhm.
great deal of wisdom that actually is our center of knowing.
Yes.
But if we're locked up from it, shamed by our hips, afraid to move them, see, this is also what happens in class is they're rolling these hips, they're moving them around, energy's moving, all of a sudden, truths are coming up. Tears are coming up, realizations are coming up, even anger comes up like, shit, I've been robbed of something. Yeah. Is
Yeah.
that making sense? Is that
Oh,
resonating?
it
Yeah.
completely makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah. Now, what would you tell
Mhm.
somebody who knows that they want to do something, but they're afraid to take the leap to do it?
Oh my goodness. You got to get into what you're afraid of. You just got to straight up say it. I am afraid of what A, B, and C. And then you got to get into the truth of that.